Good morning. Welcome
Good
in for another
morning.
Friday safety focus of the week. Today is Friday, April 25th. This week, code of conduct is going to be respect the property of others. Any words of wisdom on this code item for us this week,
Well,
Mr. Dow?
yep. Treat the property of others as if it were our own. Treat others the way we want to be treated.
Yep. We're going to talk a little bit about other people's property today and our topic regarding underground utilities. But before we do that, some quick safety stats. Good job over the last week. We're adding to our count. We're up to 79 days from our last recordable. Again, a recordable injury could be like a hand laceration, something that is above and beyond first aid measures. If you lose time for work, those are kind of the types of incidents that trigger recordable. So, and then 56 from our last first aid. So excellent. That's a real big one. We try to keep stuff on-site first aid if we can. If not, we utilize our partners over at Champlain Medical. Or if we're outside of Chittenden County, we'll head to Clear Choice and other facilities, walk-in clinics if we can. So let's continue our emphasis on hazard recognition and control. So it all starts with a good JHA. So let's do that today and every day, and continue to follow best practices to work safe and sound each day. And then 14 from our last vehicle incidents. It's always our most frequent is low speeds, backing. Historically, backing has been a big issue. So good job over the last 14, and let's make it 15 after today.
Sounds good.
So respect the marks is our topic. We're going to have Dave Attic here as a guest speaker next week to talk kind of about Vermont Gas, what they're seeing. There's been a lot of gas leaks by contractors throughout the state so far early in the construction season. Luckily, one hasn't been us, but I thought it'd be good for him to kind of highlight damage prevention, things that he's seeing that contractors are failing to do around, Vermont Gas, but other just utilities all together in the type of work that we do. So for us, what we can really emphasis and focus on is maintaining marks. Where we historically have seen some failures, it's been marked once, we forget where it was, and then we get into it with an excavator bucket. Quick little slide here just on the state statute saying that we have to have a pre-mark. Our areas must be pre-marked before we call dig safe, something that we've done pretty good lately. We've definitely had our struggles with it in the past, is making sure before we call in a ticket, we pre-mark it. So let's make sure we get those pre-marks done. And again, go more than you think. It's nothing, you get a small little, say it's a sinkhole and you make it really small and short. And then you start digging down in that area and realizing like, man, we need this thing slope way back because this thing's a lot deeper than we thought it was. So take more than you need just so we don't have to have another remark. Because again, it's 3 days now. It's the new law is 3 days for underground utility companies to come out and mark out our stuff in our dig safe area. So make sure we're doing the pre-marks. Health and safety can help with that. If you plan ahead well in advance, we can help pre-mark our areas. But just let us know. So once the utility company comes out, does their thing, Vermont Gas has been there. Centerline's been there for the power and the comm. There's a couple other third-party fiber optic companies that hire people out of Connecticut sometimes. So they are usually the ones that trickle. Most of that's kind of on the rail though. But make sure we're holding that pre-construction meeting on site. Let's kind of walk it first. Try to take photos, try to get a feel for what you're dealing with. If you do want to have some depths, we have that technology with our underground utilities where we can help give you some depths. Establish offsets is another good one to do. And also utilize our GPS equipment. I'm sure if we have rovers available on site where we can store some points, be able to reestablish that line utilizing our GPS equipment. As we saw last week, we have quite a bit of good technology there that can help maintaining our underground utility conflicts. So how the statute's written in the state of Vermont and pretty much throughout the United States is, again, it's the contractor's responsibility to maintain the marks. They will come out to refresh our marks, but again, they get 72 hours for a remark. So if we lose marks because of our mistakes, we could be delayed on our projects a little bit. So let's making sure that we're doing what we can, grab photos, put grade stakes in the ground, GPS it, whatever we can do. Create offsets right in your field book, so we can reestablish that mark, so we don't get into a power line or a comm line or a Vermont gas line because we forgot, because that could be a big issue. And then we want to really make sure that everybody knows the color code system. We do this kind of in orientation, and then we highlight it every year. But again, it should become kind of hopefully common knowledge to everybody that when they see a red mark, that's electric. When they see yellow, that is gas. When you see orange markings, that is communication. Blue is your water lines. Green is your drainage and sewer. Pink is for us, for our surveys. And then white is for our proposed excavation area. So that's kind of the color coding, universal color coding system for underground utility locating and proper use. So we want to make sure we're paying any attention to any changes in the direction of the lines. Where you usually get it is when a line certainly just does a quick 90 and we're running parallel with it, and it does a 90 into our trench line and we're getting it that way. So it's always good to hand dig ahead of you, potholing ahead of you, so you can always get depths and line as best we can anytime we're digging, especially if it's a direct buried comm line. Those are there's not a lot of tolerance there for us to for damage prevention. Make sure everyone is involved and aware of any offsets or marks that have been compromised. If something changes out there, let's make sure we're communicating a good time at the tailboard. But again, those field books are very good for that as well, just with communication and taking good notes and making sure that everybody is aware, especially the excavating operator, and especially the person in the trench spotting for the excavating operator. Don't put your spool piles over the markings. Try to avoid all of our truck drivers out there and heavy equipment people. Try not to run over stakes or markings. If you can, straddle them or completely move away from those areas until we know we have backup. Paved areas should be swept periodically so that markings can remain visible. That's a big one. So if you have some time, or if there's a laborer kind of standing around a little bit looking for something to do, and there's some refreshing that could be done, sweep it, remark it. Elliot has all these paints in the tool crib, and definitely Tom and I have them as well. If you see us around and you need a can of paint, we'll definitely give you one and keep those marks visible or refresh, especially on those long water line projects, road type of projects, where there's a lot of horizontal work being done. Once a mark becomes faded, refresh it using the proper color. So again, try not to utilize red for orange and orange for red. Pretty straightforward there. But again, let's continue to do everything that we can to respect other people's properties when it comes to underground utilities. It's definitely been a good strength of ours, as not hitting underground utilities. So let's continue to do that, because power could be very dangerous. People could get electrocuted if we get into power lines. Gas, same thing, could be explosions. Dave Attic will be talking more about that next week, regarding the dangers of gas. And then communications can be very costly, especially if it's a fiber optic line. We've seen those as north of $20,000 to repair a fiber optic line. So they can cost us quite a penny if we are deemed liable for a damage to a fiber optic line. Well, that's all I have for this week. We're going to kind of move this next week a little bit more, talk about best practice with Vermont Gas and Dave Attic and what he does for us contractors, to making sure that we continue to not damage underground utilities while we're conducting our work out there. Anything to add, Ben?
Yeah. Yeah. When you get to your site, relate the marks to visible infrastructure, and also look around and take a few minutes. And when you see a conduit coming down a side of a building, or if you see a light pole, relate the marks or try to find the marks going to that utility. Because a lot of times they'll miss them, or we got to call our own forces in to do some of the secondary services that maybe are site lighting is one example, right, Matt?
Yep. Yep.
Things like that. So that was one thing. Try to build a 3D picture in your mind, and then incorporate where the utilities are into your plan for the excavation. It has to be part of the plan, because sometimes underground utilities can be large duct banks that can really affect our work, and we'll have to provide plans to support them and things like that. I think one of the first things that I did when I worked here was locate by hand all the underground utilities that we were crossing with the infrastructure that we were putting in. And that was one of the things that Mike Colby assigned me with first, is going ahead of the excavation and locating all the utilities. And the first thing I realized was, these are not all at 18 inches. Like he said, that one was 10 inches. That one was not in the right place. That helps us a lot when we can pre-dig, especially in something that's 2 feet or less to get down there. So those are my things.
Yep. Yeah, we have plenty of locating equipment readily available. So if your project has a lot of exposure to an underground utility and you want a locator on site, we will train you how to utilize kind of our plug and play locators for helping keeping up with the marks and getting depths and figuring out maybe what is actually the live utility and what is abandoned. Because again, that could be a lot of time sunk trying to figure out what is that and where does it go to. So there's ways that we can expedite that process.
Yeah, the other thing that really is frustrating sometimes is when you find a line and you think you have it, but it's an old abandoned one.
Yeah.
Then it's not the right one.
Yep. That happens. Just give us a call. We have a lot of contact and resources kind of at our fingertips that hopefully we can get the answers to your questions pretty quickly.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Matt. Can you see my screen?
We got it.
Okay, so announcements. We don't have a meeting today for the ESOP because there weren't enough people that had signed up. So we kicked it to next Friday, the 2nd. It's going to be in the morning, right after this meeting. It'll be from 7:30 till 8:30. They are doing one at one of the job sites at noon today, I think, over to Global, which is cool. We're going to go out to the field to do one. So if you guys have a group out there, let us know, or let Aaron know, and we can schedule to come out to the job site. We can be mobile. Okay, so contact Aaron to sign up for that. Another announcement that was thought of this week is to just reevaluate your tax deductions. If you had a higher than, you have to pay in more, or if you got a bigger refund, or if you had some changes to your family situation where you need to adjust those, it'd be great to go in there and get them changed right now at the beginning of the season before we put a bunch of hours in. And Aaron Markle or Melanie Bennett can help you with those things, and their contact information is in this email. Another thing that I just barely did, I don't know if you've done it yet, Matt, that Employee Navigator, which if you need help with it, give Aaron or Melanie a call. But it only took me like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's just another portal to get into our benefits, which is kind of like that thing that we did last year called Ease, which got eliminated, and now we have this new one called Employee Navigator. People probably have an email somewhere, and just give Aaron or Melanie a call if you need to get that refreshed. But it has a lot of good information in it. It also tells us all our benefits. That was that was kind of cool because I have that supplemental insurance, and it's actually listed in there, and I had forgotten that I have that. Okay, we have a new employee that started this week, Rosemary, driver. And I haven't actually not met you yet, Rose. If you're out there, I'll find you because I was off on the day you started. She's out on the road.
Could be in the conference room with Scott.
She might be. I might walk over there after. Focus of the week is going to be presented by Cody. Cody, are you on? There you are.
Yeah,
Do you want me to drive this?
sure.
Okay.
Project of the week. Hopefully we're not too focused on my projects.
We're going to do a deep dive on your projects. We're going to get some graphs out next week, Cody. See how you're doing.
All right, nice.
We're in ESOP
Yeah.
now, so we all want to know.
So this was for the NECR 2024 build grant project down in Massachusetts. So in the December of 2024, the NECR contracted the ECI to rehab 3 bridges on the Palmer sub in Massachusetts. The bridges were located at MP 66.59 in Palmer, 67.75 in Three Rivers, and 103.43 in Northfield. And the scope at each bridge was quite a bit different from one another. So this is the Three Rivers Bridge here. This was kind of the existing conditions as it looked last summer. That's
Pretty
a through
beefy looking
girder bridge. Yeah. This is just down the road in Palmer. So this was
That
kind of
looks like a lot of
the
the-
bigger bridge.
Yeah. That looks like a lot of the bridges we have in Vermont.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And this
yeah.
this one was up in Northfield, was quite a bit smaller than the other two.
Wow.
So in March, ECI mobilized to the Three Rivers Bridge first. The scope at that bridge was to replace the existing bridge ties and rail with all new components, plus surfacing the approaches with new ballast stone. With trains running twice a day and 4 days a week, the crews had to work in some pretty short windows to get the work done. The timbers were pretty tightly spaced in between the beams on these girders, so made getting those in there pretty tough. But there's a couple of guys, I think it's Greg and I'm not sure who the other person is, cleaning out some of the stone and brush and stuff out of that bridge, the bridge beams. So pretty good attention to details to make this old bridge look nice.
Wow. Yeah.
Jake setting the first beam in there, first tie in there, but made it pretty tough to get that thing snaked in there. And that's with all the new ties in there. It's a new hardware.
Those are nice looking ties.
Looks like a brand new bridge.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm always impressed with just everything that those guys touch is on the railroad is heavy. Those joint bars, rail, the ties. So it's pretty nice when you have an operator handy that can move some of those parts and pieces for you. So
yeah, they don't have to worry about falling off the side of this one. They've got some nice big steel side rails.
Correct. So after Three Rivers was completed, the guys moved down to the Palmer site, which was only like a mile south from this one. The Palmer Bridge was arguably the most complicated of the three. So this project involved, this site involved jacking the existing bridge to install some new shim plates to correct the super elevation on this curved section of track. This bridge was also located within the yard limits, which complicated the amount of track time ECI was able to use. So we developed a jacking plan in-house, and we were able to source most of the steel for the temporary steel to use to lift the bridge from out in our scrap steel inventory. This bridge had multiple spans, each with required 4 different styles of lifting procedures. I guess I had a little typo there. So the first few days, the crew spent getting all the parts and pieces installed and testing the lift points on this multi-span bridge.
Yeah.
Once they got it all the temporary work installed, they worked with the railroad to get a brief track outage to lift the bridge up, get all the shims installed, and set the bridge back down on its new bearing plates. Following the track outage, ECI worked in between trains to replace all the remaining bridge ties with new ties and then surface the approaches. So it's kind of, this was the drawing that they gave us of what they wanted to do. It's basically kind of lift one side up more than the other, but shim both sides and then install new anchor bolts through the new plates to the piers.
Wow, they're really changing reducing the super elevation to only 3/4 of an inch, huh?
Yeah, I didn't really get a picture of this, and this is a classic example of, the drawings don't really do it justice, but some of those plates were almost 3 inches thick.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I don't know what the total weight of those plates were, but they were, when I saw them in the field, I was like, oh my God, that's an extreme example of how you can possibly underestimate what something is when you think about a 2-inch plate or 3-inch plate. You don't really think about it too much until you see it in the field and you're like, holy crap, that's big. That's heavy.
Doesn't look like a plate anymore. It's like a mass.
Yeah. This is kind of a side view of the bridge. So the first 3 spans were almost identical to each other, but then the 4th span was a little smaller. But all the piers were different. This bridge had quite a skew to it as well, which added to the complexity of the lifting procedure as well. So this is kind of it's kind of tough to tell, but looking down through a couple ties to how to get down in there to get the new channel installed in between these cross bracing.
I can see new bolts.
Can I chime in, Cody?
Absolutely.
So one thing that the project team had to deal with here was just getting this thing in the air. So we were lifting one side more than the other, so that's tough. But these deck girder bridges, unlike some through girder bridges that have floor beams that go from girder to girder, and often you can just get a jack under the floor beam. You have to analyze it to make sure it's strong enough. There's no good way to pick this bridge up. It's just 2 girders with these really light duty cross frames in between. So all the guys involved spent a ton of time field measuring, engineering, proving out a jacking plan for this. And we do, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 jacking plans a year for stuff like this. And you'd think that the VTrans ones are the hard ones because they make you submit like 80 sheets of calcs, but this was probably one of the more complex jacking plans we've done in a long time. And the guys did a great job and they made it happen. And that's in addition to the fact that you're changing the super elevation dramatically in one section of the bridge, but then you can't get it all done before the next train. So there was, between working really hard to maximize the windows we had and possibly some temporary shimming and surfacing, the whole job was I think more challenging than I thought it was originally.
Hey Ben, did they put as much scrutiny when you were working with a railroad? Do they have guys that are like looking at your jacking plans? Like when you're doing the state, you guys have to do so much work to submit it, and then even when you have a good plan, sometimes they reject it. But at least you got somebody looking at it. Or are we more on our own on the rail?
I don't even. Cody or Ron could correct me. I don't even think they looked at it. I don't even think we gave it to them. But the fact is it's got to work. We've got to do it without affecting the bridge. It can't fail. We can't start, bending angles and. So in this case, I mean, it's
a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it is. And and the guys here came up with a good plan to get some temporary members installed and bolted up, and Cody may speak to say that's what he was speaking to here. That's why I thought to mention it.
Cool.
So anyway, none of the stuff was in the plans. This is stuff that ECI came up with, and it worked pretty well.
Cool. That's the ingenuity that you guys do.
Yeah. No, and it's kind of hard to see the skew, but it's quite dramatic here.
You can kind of see on the top those ties at an angle up.
Yeah.
Can you kind of see an indication of it? This is inside, right?
Yeah. So this is down in the pier, on top of the pier. Yeah.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah. So the railroad got a few more stiffeners in their bridge added. So.
Yeah. Look at that.
At the south end, the girders were actually over land, so we were able to just dig out a little pad there and just jack off the soil there. So that was actually one of the easier spots to lift off of. But
right here, yeah. Wow.
Then once they lifted it all, then replacing all new ties. So pulling the ties off and getting some new ones installed.
That's an old bridge.
There was a plaque on it. I don't remember what it said. 1907 maybe or something.
Yeah.
It was early 1900s.
More nice new ties. I like the new ties on the bridges. They look pretty cool. This one doesn't have big side rails.
No.
Nice. There's a good shot. There's another
So
one.
that's all completed. Just and then they put in the guardrails and stuff in the last picture.
Oh yeah.
So
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that was the big one, and then the last, but certainly not least, the crew moved up to Northfield, Mass, to complete this last one. So this was an existing wood timber span that we're converting into a ballasted deck bridge using all new timbers. This was a short span over a local town road, narrow town road. So we mobilized earlier this month, and the crew had the span fully replaced and back in service in less than a week. Once the span was replaced, the crew installed new ballast stone and raised the existing track over the span, tamped and surfaced the approaches on both sides. So this was the existing bridge, what it looked like, and then this is the detail of what they wanted it to look like, all said and done.
Yeah, that one. That's crazy.
So there's the guys dropping the old timbers out of there.
Well, they get the rails up there. Just go really fast and maybe you can get over it. Wow. Wow, look at that.
Now they got the deck on, all the ties back.
It's a pretty cool wood structure.
And they're ballast retaining walls basically on the sides.
Yep.
So they fill it full of ballast stone and raise it
Look at
up
that.
and surface it in both directions. So
Good to go.
yeah,
Very nice.
so this was a great little project to kick off the year. You know, 100% self-performed by ECI, so it was it's a great little project, and the guys did a fantastic job and kicked some butt. So
That's cool. Good job. Oh, you even mentioned that here, don't you? There.
yeah.
Hey, Cody, I was wondering, do you see the resident engineers a lot less out on these jobs that are out in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly never saw anybody out there,
No
but I
kidding.
think I'd have to ask Lee or Ron, but you know, I
Right,
think they come out and check every now and then, but
now and then, but
Well, they trust Ron and Lee and all the guys probably a lot more than you think because they aren't out there checking on us all the time.
there's pros and
Yeah,
cons
we
of that.
usually-
Sometimes
We
Go ahead,
usually
Lee.
don't see anybody. Usually all we see is the flagger and he's sleeping in his truck.
easy.
Yeah, if you don't wake him up, he doesn't release the track and you get more time, right?
Hey,
Oh, we make sure to get him up.
yeah,
The only downside, they do trust
Yeah.
us, but the only downside is that, you know, we'll have out-of-state contractors come up and do a much lower caliber of work that we
Yeah.
do. And the railroad doesn't, they just don't even realize it. They're not understanding that. So it can be a little tough to bid apples to oranges with these guys when
Right.
you've got quality and safety standards up here and these companies from often down south don't, and it's just low bid
By the time
Oh,
the
well.
railroad notices something, they're already gone.
if they ever do. Yeah.
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 Or we get paid to fix it later.
Yeah.
So I found this picture. I don't know if you guys know where this one is. I don't know if you know who that guy measuring the
Wonder who that is.
super elevation. I think it's Gene. I don't know how I found this picture, but I found it.
Gotta be Gene.
Just measuring the super elevation, and that was supposedly down in that area of NECR Bridge. That's what it was. The photo was listed as. So that's a few years back. Cool. All right, I'll turn it back over to Matt. Thanks, guys, and good job, Ron and Lee and all the crew.
Yeah, if you're watching a group setting, please send over attendance to myself. Tom's off today. I've already seen a couple people text and email, so appreciate that. Recording will be up in about 30 minutes. So if someone needs to watch it, it should be up on YouTube here in about 30. Let's have a safe day. Let's have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.